story about her. It's another very long story, but I'll try and keep it as short as I can. Sophie is physically disabled. She uses a wheelchair. She has a condition called nemelinopathy, which is very unusual, so it makes her a very unusual child. She's quite severely affected, and she does have a lot of time in hospital. The condition causes her muscles all to be very weak, so that affects her respiratory function, it affects her mobility, she gets lots of chest infections, and she needs a lot of careful management. She also has a severe spinal scoliosis, which means she needs regular surgery. She's gastrostomy fed only, so she will never eat or drink anything in all her life. She never has. And this condition does mean that she is life limited as well as life threatening all the time. So she is kind of a special little girl, and she is quite seriously disabled, but she's a bright, intelligent, sociable child. The only bit of Sophie that works perfectly is her brain. And ever since she's been very small, we've always been determined that the one thing she would be given is the chance to use the part of her that works. So we set up for her to go to school. She went to preschool when she was 2. She had a full statement at 2. And we set her up to go to the local preschool so that she would get to know everyone and get a peer group so that she could move forward into mainstream education. Because as far as we were concerned, her only special needs for education were that she's weak and gets tired very easily. Her communication is not brilliant. So she just needs a little bit of extra support, but she does need healthcare support. So that was great. She went to preschool. From being 2, she took a healthcare worker with her. Everything was wonderful. She was accepted. The other children got on really well with her. Other children don't seem to have an issue with disability at all. And she made lots of friends, and it was very successful. So then, in 2009, she moved up and went to the local primary school, as we planned. Before she went, we had lots of meetings. It was discussed with the school, the severity of her disability, whether they would be able to cope. And they were very keen that she would come on board. In fact, they said to us, the one thing that we always think is all children are different, no children are the same, and all children should be made the best of. So we thought that was wonderful. She was going to go into this fabulous environment. And she did for 2 years. She had a teaching assistant that was trained in her healthcare, and she had 2 years together in class 1 because they were mixed years. And it was fine. It appeared to be fine. Everyone seemed very happy. Sophie was a bit clingy, but that was to be expected. And everything seemed perfectly alright. She went back to school in September last year, 2011, and she did 2.5 days in class 2 with a new class teacher. And then we went back on the Monday morning, on the 12th of September, to be met at the door by the headmaster to say you can't come in. She can't come here anymore because she's a health and safety risk and she puts everybody at risk. So they turned us away and we went home. Sophie cried all the way home. The things that Sophie's had done to her, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. She never cried, and she cried all the way home. And she's never been back in the school since. We had no idea that there was a problem. They never wrote to us, they never said anything to us. They said it was an authorised leave of absence for a temporary period. And that was due to finish on the 31st of October. We got in touch with the Education Authority. They were as surprised at the decision as we were. And they assured us that they would do everything in their power to ensure that the school had all support in place and so she could return as soon as possible. She's still not returned to the school. The school said that they had issues then between the relationship between us and them. Now, we've never had a problem with the relationship. In fact, they'd even written a supportive letter to us when we were trying to get care from the primary care trust to say what wonderful supportive parents we were. My husband was on the PTA. In fact, he was deputy chair of the PTA and raised funds for the school, and we'd no problems. School were offered the chance to go to mediation by the LEA, which they refused to do. We were very keen to go to mediation and sort out whatever the problem was, but no, they didn't want to do that. And then they said that they couldn't, the school environment was unsuitable for somebody in a wheelchair. There wasn't room for supportive seating, there was nowhere to keep her oxygen, there was health and safety risks because of her medical interventions. And then they drew up some risk assessments, which mostly were made up. They weren't drawn up by experts, so they'd drawn up their own oxygen policy to say that the oxygen cylinders were explosive and had to be kept away from the children in case they exploded. And they had to be kept at least 3 metres from any source of electricity, which kind of would give a hospital a problem, seeing as usually plugged in next to the oxygen anyway. And these were all produced as legitimate risk assessments and reasons why Sophie couldn't ever return to the school. The LEA bent over backwards. They even offered to, well, in fact, they purchased a temporary building that could go outside, and they found a place to put it. Assets management worked out how they could fit it. So Sophie would have a room of her own for her medical interventions and to keep all her equipment. But they refused it. So every bit of help that they were offered, from training to equipment, they refused. And they said that they couldn't have her back now because she would need a differentiated curriculum, as she can't keep up with the other children. All she needs is extra time. But they weren't interested. We've looked at other schools, but this school is in her village, it's in her community. So for instance, the Jubilee, this time they're having a party on the field, all the funds go to school. She belongs in that community, but they don't want her. So you could take her somewhere else and educate her out of her community, away from the people that she grew up with, and make her join a different village because she's different. What do you do? When Sophie, all her life we've said to Sophie, it doesn't matter that you're different. Everyone's different. It doesn't matter what you can't do, it only matters what you can. And no one's ever judged her, and now she's realised that life isn't like that. And that some people will always judge her because she looks different. And you can't give that back to a 6-year-old. You can't say to her, no, you're perfect as you are, because she knows that she's not. And she knows that people will always do that. We do, though, have some good news in that she's gone to another school for a temporary period because she was so unhappy and depressed at home. So she's gone to Goose Tree Primary for a month's trial. Same, from the outside the school's the same. It's a small Victorian village school, full of children. Nothing's different really, but what's different is the attitude. Nothing is too much trouble. Sophie can do what she likes. If Sophie's tired, she can have a rest. If she wants to sit in a wheelchair all day, she can. It's not a problem. She has supportive seating, so they've moved the classroom around so that she can see the board. None of it's an issue. So it can be done. They have lots of children with all sorts of special educational needs, a huge variety. And they're all happy, and they're all respected for who they are, and not for what they can't do. And the school fits around the children. They don't expect the children to fit around the schools. But where you go from here, what do you do? If the LEA were not on our side, we could have gone to tribunal. But because they are on our side, we can't. If we move Sophie and let her go to a school where she's happy and change the name on the statement, there is no redress against CEPCVoice schools. They basically got away with it. They can do it to the next child. There's nothing comes back to them. maybe? I don't know. But that's Sophie's story.